please join me in welcoming Janet Holmgren.
Thank you and good evening. It's a pleasure to have a podium that I can see over and enjoy this wonderful view of this amazing audience of the Bay Area Council. When Gary Rogers asked me to introduce the video on Lorry Lokey, I could not have been more pleased or excited. Lorry is a great friend, a wise counselor, an amazing man who characterizes for me the Jewish values of loving human kindness. He has invested in his work and in his philanthropy a sense of the value of human capacity and growth. I was talking to Larry Baer earlier this evening, who is introducing Charlie Johnson, and Larry was saying, you know, it's going to be hard to follow you, Jan, a college university president. And I'm thinking, well, you know, Larry has a World Series trophy. What could be harder? What could be more important? But I have to say that being able to introduce Lorry Lokey, who founded an amazing business, Business Wire, which perhaps was the beginning of the internet. Maybe Al Gore was upstaged by Lorry in some way, because Lorry had a notion about telecommunication and the way people could be connected in remote ways through this form of communication. And he could also type. And as he said, being able to type was a skill that catapulted him into business leadership. It also enabled him to bring into his company a group of partners, many of whom were women. And he valued their contributions, he valued their abilities, he brought them into his business, and he brought their children into his offices. So Lorry had a sense of how you could create an equitable workplace, and a place where people's skills were valued regardless of gender or ethnicity. I met Lorry Lokey at a number of occasions when I was president of Mills College, when he was what we would call a significant donor. But one day I sat down with Lorry Lokey and his life partner, Joanne Harrington, at lunch. And we talked about the future of higher education. And Lorry asked me about a significant initiative at Mills College. And he said, how much do you think that initiative is going to cost? So I gave him a number that seemed to me to be an important number, but a number that was doable and possible. And he looked at me and he said, no, way off the mark. And he gave me a number that was a heart stopper. I said to him, how much do you think this is going to cost, Lorry? And he said, it's going to be a significant investment. And I said, well, can you do that? And he said, I can. And I said, Lorry, will you do that? And he said, I will. And that was the beginning of the Lorry Lokey Graduate School of Business at Mills College. I am very proud to introduce this video about my friend, about a man who cares about the status of humankind and who has invested as a wise businessman and a wise philanthropist, and who is joining this Bay Area Council Hall of Fame. Thank you.
I would describe Lorry to someone that didn't know him as a character, sometimes outrageous, always speaks his mind, but a really great person because he epitomizes the things that I respect, which he's learned, he's earned, and he's returned. But he does it on his own terms.
He was one of the founding fathers of the industry, really. He kind of came upon the idea for a commercial newswire service on his own.
He had this great idea way back in '61 to put printers at the newspapers so we could deliver the news right into the newspapers.
I started in a small office leased by a real estate agent or insurance man, whatever. It was about 12 by 12 in size. Eventually he needed that space and I moved to a huge area of 150 square feet on Sutter Street.
He just so believed in the idea that he kept going. And eventually we got those printers placed at the major media, and then we moved to satellite and all different technologies, and today it's internet technology.
Sure, we're driven by profit, but my idea of profit is not to look at the money coming in, is to provide a good service and the money comes in automatically.
He was in it for the competition, and he was in it for the thrill of building something. So it didn't surprise me that once he became rather wealthy, particularly after the sale of the company, he would go to the extent that he did in donating what he did to various schools and organizations, because for him it was never just about the money, it was really about kind of the journey.
He cares about the world because he's done so much, primarily in education, and he's also done a lot to advance women, and I can speak personally about that.
Men often undersell or short sell women, and women have as many brains, if not more, than men. They have a different type of thinking that blended with men's thinking, you come up with a lot of solutions.
He always looks at what you can do. He's not always looking at what the rules say. Lorry will break the rules if he feels there's good reason to do so.
I describe Lorry Lokey as a mensch. He's a very engaging person, very enjoyable to be with. He's got very strong opinions, and he's not afraid to debate those opinions. But he has a greater interest in the community and the improvement of the community, particularly in education.
He believes strongly in a good education. He himself had a very good education, and he believes in providing as many people as possible with solid education. So that's where most of his kind of charitable work has been focused.
Education is everything. Naturally, your parents in the first few years are big influences. But from age 5 or 6, the school has you. And what they develop in your ethics, in your personality, and in your intelligence is what sets you up for the rest of your life.
My first impression of Lorry was he was a force of nature, that he had been a very successful business person, and now he wanted to be very successful in philanthropy. And he was determined that he was going to give away his fortune in such a way that would benefit as many people as possible.
He's one of those persons who doesn't talk a lot, but when he has something to say, it's really important that you listen. And he's a very good thinker. He made a lot of contributions as a trustee, thought contributions, not just monetary contributions, but helping us think through difficult issues and helping us plan on a path forward.
Anything that will set people up to have a more successful life is a good investment.
When he gave his largest gift for the new Learning Center, Technology Center, and Library, he made his donation unbeknownst to his good friend, Joanne Harrington, in her name. So at the dedication of the library, when they unveiled the name off the front of the building, she saw her name for the first time.
Yeah, she got her handkerchief rather wet.
He's one of my philanthropic heroes. He's just a wonderful, wonderful person.
Well, at Stanford University, Lorry has given to a number of different causes. Lorry has given to the Stanford newspaper. There's a Lorry Lokey chemistry building, and there's our building, which is called the Lorry Lokey Stem Cell Research Building. And I believe that Lorry really had an interest in stem cell biology and regenerative medicine because it seemed to him to be something that was very future-driven.
That stem cell lab is going to affect millions of people 10 years from now, if not less. It's already come up with a partial research success on breast and a few other cancers.
He had an interest in funding something where the possibilities and the potential was not necessarily realized today, but it would have a long-term impact. And stem cell biology has been one of his favorite things to donate to.
I just want to say congratulations, Lorry. This is a richly deserved honor. You've done so much for the community and the world.
Nice going. The crowd loves you, Lorry.
Oh, no.
That's pretty good, huh?
Come on, folks. My legs will only hold up so long.
Lorry, it gives us great pleasure to induct you into the Bay Area Business Hall of Fame.
Oh,
congratulations. You certainly deserve it.
That's beautiful.
There you are. You want me to take it backstage, or you want to hold it? Hold it. Yeah. All right. That's great.
Yeah. Whoo! How about the house lights going on? I want to see people. Come on, someone, turn on the lights. You know, my history of giving began 80 years ago, and most of you aren't 80 years old. You hear my voice? It's cracking. I'm getting there. But when I was 5 years old, my mother took my brother and me to the corner drugstore 3 blocks away for the summer ice cream cone. This is the heart of Depression, 1932. And while she rolled the baby along in the buggy, I toddled along, sing-songy as a 5-year-old would be. We got the ice cream cone, but she didn't give it to me until we got back across the busy street in Portland. And I started whipping into it as soon as she gave it to me. She said, "Oh, may I have a taste?" "No. It's mine." How many of you parents have not heard a youngster say that? Well, immediately the ice cream disappeared from my hands into her hands, and she enjoyed my ice cream cone for the next 3 blocks. You know, I did some thinking about that. So the next month when we went for the ice cream cone, we crossed the street, and before she could even ask for a taste, I said, "Mommy, would you like a taste?" The second big lesson was when I was 11 or 12 years old, and believe me, times were lousy in 37 and 38 and 39, but especially the last half of 37. It caved in on us. And so around 1939, 38, I noticed that the folks were giving the United Jewish Federation $100. That's 5% of my father's entire yearly pay. Back then, $2,000 would be like $35,000 today. And I said, "Mom, we can't afford this." And said, "We can. We must share." That got me to thinking again. And I thought, boy, I guess I'll have to do this type of thing too. And it wasn't more than 2 or 3 years out of Stanford that I began giving a few percent per year, and it began to build up. We came to a time, before I go further, I wish we had more lights on. Casey and Pat, you're back here somewhere. Stand up tall. Where are you? There you are.
These two women represent the 80 to 100 women of Business Wire out of 150 people that made me rich. Thank you, girls. The funny part is they got rich. When I sold the business to Warren, 22 of the 38 people were women who became millionaires or darn close to it. And I don't regret it one bit. They deserved it. They made it a success. And they provided me with a huge amount of funds that I didn't need. So what to do with it? It's a pain in the neck. You get rid of it. I would have loved to build a Stanford style of school over in Hayward or Dublin, but instead of costing $1 billion, I found it would cost $2 billion. So I embarked on large projects. And these projects started rather hamishly. The chairs at Stanford, 5 or 6 chairs of a few $1,000,000 each. A laboratory at Stanford, a biological research lab, a ChemBio actually. And we moved, as I met Joanne 21 and a half years ago, suddenly I got religious with Santa Clara University. Santa Clara, you're over here, aren't you? Come on, stand up. Stand up. You know, if I didn't make Stanford, I sure would have loved Santa Clara or Oregon. I mean, these are fine schools. And I was excited to be able to take part in developing Santa Clara University's growth. The library was the culmination, but possibly the most important part was 10 or 12 million to finance student tuition. This is a terribly important thing these days. Tuition is ridiculously high, and it isn't going to come down. And if with high tuition, if you don't have financial aid, you lose men and women capable of going to college who won't make it. It's that simple. So this is a very important factor. Building endowment is another thing. It moved on to University of Oregon, which became my major source of donations. Actually, I hate that word, donations. It's a terrible word. The word is investment. I'm investing in the future. And the future includes people not even born yet. Because what I've been describing up till now is going to benefit unborn people, let alone those now going, for years to come, for 40 and 50 years to come. Can you imagine that if you hit it lucky and make a lot of money, which I really didn't care to make, but I made it. Can you imagine how many tens of thousands of men and women are going to benefit from it? Think it over in terms of your own financial positions. You don't have to give $1 million or $500,000 or $100,000. You can give $50 for a book, and there'll be a nameplate in it, and hundreds of students will see that nameplate, and you'll know it's there, and you can be proud. You can put in for a chair for a professor, and so on up the line to a big building. But if it weren't for the small donations, meaning less than $100,000, every campaign the schools enact would fail. Because when you have 15,000 contributors to a campaign, something like 10,000 to 13,000 are giving those small amounts, about 1/3 of the total campaign. Giving, well, you've heard of joy of cooking. For me, it's joy of giving. Now, the joy of giving is because, and this is where Bay Area Council theme comes in, of building a successful business. And my business was immensely successful. I didn't know beans about running a business, yet I had my finger in everything. But I had these wonderful men and women that knew I cared and that people around them cared, and we became the best in the country. Pat, we're still the best, aren't we? Yeah. So, and I've been off the payroll for 4 years, but it's worth talking. I hope as you go home tonight, you'll be considering what you can do to help our future. Don't depend on Washington or Sacramento. They're hopeless. Sorry, folks. You can tell what's her name in the House, I think she's in the House, from San Francisco, that she's a great legislator, but the sites, they and 400 plus others are missing the sights on education. Education is the beginning of life. Education determines what you're going to be. There's nothing sinful about being a truck driver. There's nothing wrong with being a retail clerk. But if your mental capacity will carry you further than that, that's what we need to provide for. It's what the human being can take. And a good education will maybe eliminate some of the things that happened the past week. I thank the Bay Area Council for the notoriety tonight, and I appreciate it. And I hope that my message will carry home with you, and that you too, in your own way, can be as happy as I am with what you accomplish. Thank you.